Imagine a period in history when Rome, known for its intrigues and betrayals, experienced a golden age of stability and growth. How was this possible? How, amidst so many disputes, did a group of emperors manage to unite and prosper, the most powerful empire of the time? Today we will reveal the hidden secret of the Nerva-Antonine Dynasty, known as the era of the five good emperors. Nerva, Trajan, Hadrian, Antoninus Pius, and Marcus Aurelius. These leaders had something special, something that differentiated their governance and ensured they were remembered as the greatest emperors in Roman history. If you have ever wondered how Rome reached its peak or what these men did to stand out in such a time of conflict, then come with me to discover what made these emperors change Rome forever. Imagine a vast empire, full of life, culture, and achievements. This was the Roman Empire, a place where the streets were filled with merchants, soldiers, and citizens seeking opportunities. However, behind this vibrant facade, there was a political turbulence that could easily descend into chaos. It was in this context that what became known as the period of the five good emperors began, an era that transformed Rome into one of the greatest centers of civilization in history. The story begins with Nerva, an emperor who took the throne in difficult times. Imagine the scene: an elderly leader concerned about the future of the empire, navigating the murky waters of distrust and fear. He knew he needed someone to carry on his legacy and restore faith in the government. So Nerva made a crucial decision: to choose a successor not by birth but by merit. Thus he chose Trajan, a strong, charismatic man with a history of military achievements. When Trajan came to power, he brought new energy to Rome. His first order of business? To expand the empire's borders and consolidate his power. With a bold vision, he led his troops on campaigns that brought wealth and prestige. Imagine the crowds in the streets of Rome, cheering as reports of glorious victories arrived. But Trajan was not just a conqueror, he also cared about the citizens. He was known for building infrastructure, such as the magnificent Trajan's Market, a space that still stands as a testament to his legacy. Have you ever tried to understand the wars that made Rome the greatest empire in the world, but ended up lost in so many confusing details? If so, you are not alone. Imagine finally mastering the most important details that shaped Rome, learning the strategies of great generals like Julius Caesar and Scipio Africanus, and understanding how these maneuvers changed the course of history. Knowing the difficulty of finding this information, I have made my digital book, The 10 Battles That Shaped the Roman Empire, available to you, giving you clear and direct access to all of this. Understand how Rome won impossible battles, discover curiosities you won't find elsewhere, and become an expert in Roman military history. Access the pinned comment and acquire yours right now, as our units are running out. The story continues with the torch of power passing to Hadrian, who had a different vision. He was less interested in conquering new lands and more focused on protecting those that already existed. What he did was somewhat revolutionary for the time. He traveled throughout the empire, conversing with people and understanding their concerns. Imagine a leader who does not hide behind marble walls but walks among his people, listening to their stories and learning from their experiences. Hadrian built the famous Hadrian's Wall in Britain, a fortification that symbolized his dedication to security and stability. After Hadrian came Antoninus Pius, who ruled with exemplary kindness. He believed that an emperor should be a father to his people. Imagine a ruler striving to ensure that every citizen had a dignified and respectable life. He implemented reforms that improved the judicial system and ensured that the voices of the less fortunate were heard. During his reign, Rome enjoyed a peaceful environment where justice and compassion were priorities. Finally, we find Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher on the throne. Marcus was not just a leader, he was a thinker who reflected on his responsibilities. His diaries, known as Meditations, give us a glimpse of a man struggling to be just and virtuous in an imperfect world. Imagine an emperor who, instead of considering himself above all, saw himself as part of a greater whole, always seeking wisdom and the well-being of his people. These five men, with their distinct visions and values, not only shaped the fate of Rome, but also left a legacy that resonates to this day. They teach us that true leadership goes beyond power. It is about serving, listening, and building a society where everyone can thrive. Now, I will tell you in detail about each of these powerful leaders' reigns, but before we continue, make sure to remember the name and image of this channel so that you can always return to this reliable source about the history of Rome. Now, check if you are already subscribed, because here you will find rigorously researched and presented facts about one of the most influential civilizations in history. I will start by telling you the story of Nerva. After the cruel assassination of Domitian, Rome was immersed in an atmosphere of uncertainty and fear. The streets, which once vibrated with life and culture, were laden with a heavy silence, as if the city itself were in mourning. The tyrant who ruled with an iron fist had left a legacy of oppression and distrust, and the population longed for change. In this turbulent scenario, a new leader emerged: Nerva. He was not an imposing military figure, nor an arrogant politician. He was a gray-haired senator whose eyes conveyed wisdom and a quiet determination. Nerva had always been seen as a just man, someone who understood the problems of the middle class and the plebeians, and he was not a stranger to the corridors of power. However, his selection as emperor was a true test, a challenge at a time of crisis. Shortly after assuming the throne, Nerva realized he needed more than good intentions to regain the trust of the people. He called a meeting in the Senate, an event that drew everyone's attention. The senators, with their white togas and serious faces, gathered in a room that had witnessed many fervent debates and betrayals. The atmosphere was tense. Many doubted his ability to govern, especially after the tyranny of Domitian. Nerva entered the room and a cautious silence fell. With a firm yet calm voice, he began to speak. He did not limit himself to empty promises. He laid out his vision of a government that would prioritize justice, peace, and the participation of the people. "We must restore the honor of Rome," he said, looking into the eyes of the senators, "and do this together." As his words echoed, the tension in the room began to dissipate. The senators leaned forward, intrigued. Nerva was not there to impose his will, but to build a bridge between the government and the people. He began to outline plans to abolish the cruelest policies of his predecessor, creating a safe space for citizens to express themselves and be heard. As the days passed, Nerva implemented reforms that began to change the lives of the Romans. The squares, which had been places of fear and oppression, were now filled with life again. People emerged from their homes, talking and smiling. It was as if a new wind was blowing through the city, bringing with it hope and a renewed sense of belonging. But Nerva knew that the true test of his leadership would be to ensure that this change was lasting. To that end, he made a crucial decision. He adopted an heir. And this would not be just any heir, but Trajan, a respected general known for his military achievements and the loyalty of his troops. Trajan's selection was not just a strategy to ensure the continuity of power, but an act of hope. In a ceremony full of symbolism, Nerva introduced Trajan to the people. Imagine the scene: flags waving, a vibrant crowd gathered in the main square, and Nerva, alongside Trajan, raising his hands as a sign of unity. The crowd applauded, their voices echoing like a hymn of renewal. "Together we will form a stronger empire," proclaimed Nerva, and the enthusiasm was palpable. With Trajan by his side, Nerva was determined to build an empire that not only respected Roman traditions, but also the rights and feelings of its people. He dreamed of a Rome where the voices of the people would be heard and respected, and where each citizen would have a role to play in the grand history of the empire. As Nerva and Trajan walked side by side toward a bright future, the Romans began to realize that, at last, there was a light at the end of the tunnel. The empire was about to enter a golden age, filled with justice, prosperity, and a new sense of community. The history of Rome was about to be rewritten, and everyone was eager to see what the future would hold. Let me know in the comments if you know of any Roman emperor who changed Rome. I want to hear your thoughts. Now we will continue with the story of Trajan. After the death of the tyrant Domitian, Rome breathed a sigh of relief. The emperor who had ruled with an iron fist and instigated fear was now part of the past. However, uncertainty loomed over the city, and what was needed was a strong yet just leader. Then a man emerged from the shadows, someone who not only wore the toga of authority, but also brought with him the hope of a new beginning. Nerva. Nerva was an elderly man, but age had not taken away the sagacity and wisdom acquired throughout his political life. Upon being chosen as emperor, he knew he had a critical mission at hand. His first major decision? To choose a successor who could guarantee the stability and continuity of the empire. And in this context, he made a choice that would shape the history of Rome. He adopted Trajan. And always remember that whenever you want to learn more about the history of Rome and how everything happened in detail from a true source, you should get your digital book, The 10 Battles That Shaped the Roman Empire. It is very important that you get it now before the units run out. Just go to the pinned comment and get yours. Imagine the scene. Nerva, seated on a magnificent marble throne, surrounded by senators with expressions of anxiety and hope, looking into the eyes of Trajan. The young general was known for his bravery in battles and the loyalty he inspired in his soldiers. This choice was not just political, it was a promise of a better future for Rome. With Trajan as his heir, Nerva calmed the spirits of the Senate and the people. He was not merely transferring power, he was delivering a vision, an ideal of how Rome could thrive again. The decision was well received, and a breath of optimism began to circulate throughout the city. Nerva, in his short reign of 16 months, laid the foundations for what was to come. When the time came for Nerva to pass the baton, the trust he placed in Trajan was not in vain. Trajan, now emperor, wasted no time. He understood that the true strength of an emperor lay not only in his military conquests, but in how he treated his people. Thus, he began a tour of the provinces, listening to the citizens' concerns and learning about their lives. Gradually, Trajan's image began to solidify. He was not merely a conqueror, he was a ruler who cared. With a gentle smile and a firm gaze, he walked through the markets of Rome, stopping to listen to a merchant or greet a child. His presence was a symbol of hope, and people began to believe that perhaps, just perhaps, Rome could heal from the wounds left by Domitian. Trajan was not content to just listen, he decided to take action. With a plan in mind, he established a series of major public works that would transform the infrastructure of Rome. Aqueducts, roads, and majestic buildings began to rise, witnesses to his determination not only to expand the empire, but also to enhance the lives of its citizens. The constructions were not merely made of stone and cement. They symbolized a new era of progress. But Trajan was more than a builder. He was a general. Through his military campaigns, he expanded the borders of Rome like never before. Imagine the troops marching, their shields reflecting the sunlight as Trajan led with bravery in each battle. The empire not only grew in territorial extent, it became a legend. The winds of change were blowing everywhere, and the glory of Rome seemed within reach. As Trajan conquered new lands, Roman culture also expanded. Art and philosophy flourished under his rule, and Roman ideas began to intertwine with the cultures of the conquered peoples. He did not impose Rome upon them, he integrated them, making each new territory feel like part of the grand tapestry that was the empire. With each victory and each construction, Trajan was not only physically expanding Rome, but also restoring his people's faith in the greatness of the empire. And thus the legacy of Nerva and Trajan began to shape a new chapter in the history of Rome, where justice and bravery went hand in hand, and the future seemed brighter than ever. Now the story of Rome was in motion, and the next phase promised to be even more exciting. If you are enjoying this content and believe that these stories of Rome are helping you better understand the empire that shaped the world, don't forget to leave your like. This not only helps spread the true history of Rome to more people, but also ensures that YouTube shows you more videos like this. So give a like and strengthen this journey of historical discoveries. Now meet Trajan's successor, Hadrian. After the brilliant reign of Trajan, Rome was about to enter a new era under the leadership of a man who, through his curiosity and passion for beauty, would leave an indelible mark on the history of the empire, Hadrian. Imagine an emperor who was not content to govern from his palace in Rome, but saw each province as an opportunity for learning and innovation. Hadrian was known for his dedication to architecture and design, and he had a clear vision of what he wanted for Rome. From a young age, he was fascinated by grand constructions and how they could inspire people. Now, as emperor, His mission was to transform Rome into a city that reflected the greatness and culture of the empire. He dreamed of seeing each building, each square, and each monument tell a story of strength, beauty, and harmony. As soon as he took the throne, Hadrian embarked on an intense period of travels. He traveled through various provinces, from the heat of Egypt to the dense forests of Gaul. At each stop, he paused to observe local traditions, interact with the inhabitants, and understand their lives. This curiosity was not just a pastime, it was an essential part of his leadership. He believed that a good emperor needed to know and respect his people. During his journeys, Hadrian was particularly impressed by the cultural wealth of the provinces. He saw how architecture reflected the identity of the peoples and realized that each place had its own story to tell. Thus, when he returned to Rome, his mind was brimming with new ideas. He imagined how he could combine elements from the various cultures he encountered, creating a unique style that would be a symbol of the unified empire. One of Hadrian's most notable works was the reconstruction of the Pantheon. The ancient temple, which was already an impressive structure, received treatment that would transform it into a true masterpiece. Picture the workers sweating under the sun, shaping stones that, under Hadrian's guidance, would become part of a majestic dome. This dome was not just a ceiling, it was a connection to the sky, with an oculus that allowed light to enter, symbolizing the relationship between the divine and the human. For the Romans, entering the Pantheon was like stepping into a sacred place, where they felt closer to the gods. In addition to the Pantheon, Hadrian renovated several other structures throughout Rome and beyond. He knew that each project was not just a building, but a way to leave a legacy. The streets of Rome began to display his signature, with adorned squares and temples that became landmarks. He was shaping the city according to his vision, and each new work was a testament to his passion for beauty. However, the awareness that his era would not last forever weighed on Hadrian. He knew that the stability of the empire depended on a smooth transition of power. Thus, he made a deliberate choice by adopting Antoninus Pius as his successor. This was not a simple decision. It was a gesture of trust. Hadrian saw in Antoninus a principled man, someone who could continue his vision and ensure that the peace and prosperity he had established would not be lost. Hadrian was not only securing a future for the empire, but also forming a dynasty that would commit to maintaining the high standards he had set. He wanted his legacy of art and culture not only to survive, but to thrive. This choice of Antoninus Pius reflected his wisdom as a leader. He knew that the empire needed continuity and a steady hand to guide it. Thus, as Hadrian prepared to pass the baton of power, he was confident that his love for architecture and his reforms for a more beautiful Rome would continue to live on through Antoninus Pius. This was an era of transformation and promises, where history was about to unfold with new narratives and legacies that would echo for centuries. Hadrian's journey, filled with discoveries and achievements, was a testament to how a leader's vision could change not just a city, but an entire empire. Let me know in the comments if you have heard of any of these emperors, and if we forgot to mention any. Now, I will continue and tell the story of Antoninus Pius's reign. When we talk about the reign of Antoninus Pius, we delve into one of the most fascinating periods in Roman history, an era marked by peace, prosperity, and a ruler distinguished by his justice and compassion. After Hadrian's death, Antoninus Pius ascended to the throne, and his arrival in power was like a breath of fresh air in an empire that had often been shaken by tyranny and conflict. Imagine a Rome where citizens could finally breathe a sigh of relief, where the voices of the people were heard and respected. Antoninus Pius was not just an emperor, he was a leader who genuinely cared. From the beginning of his reign, he dedicated himself to regaining the trust of the Senate and the people, two groups that had often felt oppressed under previous rulers. He implemented reforms that benefited both the rich and the poor. For example, Antoninus established a fairer tax system, easing the burden on those in need. This decision was not just a political maneuver, it was a clear sign that he was committed to the well-being of all Romans, not just the interests of the elite. One of the most notable aspects of his reign was his ability to resolve conflicts. Antoninus Pius firmly believed that the true strength of a leader lay in his ability to mediate and reconcile. rather than impose his will through force. He often met with ordinary citizens and representatives of the Senate, listening to their concerns and seeking solutions that would benefit everyone. Imagine the scenes: the emperor sitting in a room with a diverse group of people, debating the problems of his city, ready to listen and learn. And let us not forget the architecture and innovations that flourished under his rule. Antoninus Pius had a passion for construction and aesthetics. He continued several projects initiated by Hadrian and started new ones, transforming Rome into a metropolis of beauty and functionality. Public baths became even more elaborate, not only as spaces for personal hygiene, but as social centers where people gathered to discuss philosophy, politics, and culture. It was in such environments that Roman culture solidified and expanded. In addition to his internal achievements, Antoninus Pius also excelled in his diplomacy toward the provinces. He did not view the conquered peoples as mere extensions of the empire, but as valuable communities deserving of respect and attention. Instead of imposing military force, he sought peaceful agreements and alliances, which made him an admired leader in various regions. The borders of the empire were maintained through negotiation and relationship building, rather than merely through marching armies. A fundamental element of Antoninus's government was his choice of succession. He adopted Marcus Aurelius, a promising young man, preparing him to follow in his footsteps. This decision was not merely a political strategy. It reflected a broader vision of the continuity of government and the importance of a wise and educated leader. Antoninus believed that education and preparation were essential to ensure that Rome continued to prosper. With his administration, Rome not only stabilized but also began to expand in areas of cultural and economic influence. The peace and prosperity during Antoninus Pius's reign became a model for future generations, an era that would be marked in history as a golden age. However, even in times of great prosperity, the shadow of change always lurked. The legacy of Antoninus Pius and the preparation of Marcus Aurelius to take the throne would place Rome on a new path, one that would test the resilience of the principles of justice and empathy that had been so carefully cultivated during his reign. Before I reveal the great emperor of this incredible civilization that was Rome, make sure you are subscribed to the channel, as we will always bring content about everything related to Rome. Now meet the great and famous Marcus Aurelius. Marcus Aurelius, the last of the 5 good emperors of Rome, stood out not only as an emperor but as a true philosopher amid the storm in the vast and splendid Roman Empire, where stories of glory and tragedy intertwined. His reign, which began in a time of great difficulties, would become a landmark in the history of humanity. After inheriting an empire marked by a succession of crises, Marcus Aurelius found Rome in a state of despair. Plagues, which had spread like a voracious fire, were decimating the population. It was a devastating scene. Once vibrant cities were now turning into shadows of their former splendor, with deserted streets and silent squares. The people, tormented by pain and fear, looked to the future with distrust, questioning whether the light of hope would still shine in their lives. Marcus, a man of principles and deep empathy, did not let the weight of the crown overwhelm him. Instead of retreating to his palace, he plunged into the struggle, traveling through the provinces and listening to the voices of the people. He conversed with ordinary citizens, listened to their laments and concerns, establishing a bond that went beyond his position as emperor. His heart was with those who suffered, and his mind was teeming with ideas on how to restore order and dignity. Let's imagine the scene. Marcus Aurelius, dressed in a toga, walking through the streets of Rome, his eyes attentive to expressions of pain and anguish. He instituted assistance programs, sending supplies and food to the most affected areas. The words of encouragement he offered became a bridge between the government and the people. He was not just a ruler, he was a true leader, capable of inspiring hope in dark times. However, the calm was about to be broken. The invasion of Germanic tribes began to threaten the empire's borders. Marcus Aurelius, upon receiving news of enemy incursions, knew he needed to act quickly. He was not intimidated. Instead, he donned his armor and summoned his legions. Imagine the scene: a determined emperor riding his horse among loyal soldiers, ready to defend the greatness of Rome. Commanding his troops, Marcus not only prepared for battle, he became a part of it. In every confrontation against the invaders, His bravery was palpable. He knew the tactics of war, and more importantly, he knew his men. Marcus used not only his physical strength, but also his intelligence and cunning. He implemented strategies that took advantage of the terrain and used the morale of his troops as a true arsenal. The battles were fierce. In every combat, dust rose as swords and shields clashed, and the sound of clamor echoed in the hills. Marcus Aurelius did not shy away from danger. He led his men, facing the enemies with courage and determination. For him, the defense of Rome was not just a matter of honor, it was a sacred responsibility. As he faced external invasions, he also navigated turbulent waters within the empire. Social tensions grew as the provinces clamored for more autonomy. But Marcus Aurelius, with his diplomatic character, believed that dialogue could unite the empire. He summoned leaders from different regions, listening to their concerns and seeking solutions that would ensure peace and stability. Marcus Aurelius stood out as a man of words and actions. He promoted justice and equality, striving to be the voice of reason in a world often engulfed in irrationality. He sought inspiration in his own writings, which reflected his stoic beliefs about virtue, resilience, and the importance of facing adversity with dignity. These ideas were not just philosophy for him, they were practical guides for governing in times of crisis. But what marked Marcus Aurelius's reign the most was his willingness to confront not only external enemies, but also the internal issues affecting his people. He sought to understand the essence of the challenges that Roman society faced. He was an emperor who did not limit himself to giving orders. He wanted to know how the decisions he made affected the lives of every citizen, every soldier, every woman and child under his responsibility. As battles unfolded and internal crises accumulated, Marcus Aurelius continued to be a beacon of hope for his people. His leadership became a testament to what it meant to be a ruler in times of uncertainty. He faced each new difficulty with courage, always aware that his role was to protect the legacy of Rome and ensure that civilization flourished, even amid chaos. Marcus Aurelius, with his journey of challenges and triumphs, became not only an emperor, but a legend. The story of his life is a lesson in resilience, leadership, and the importance of listening to those we govern. As the dust of battle settles, the legacy of Marcus Aurelius continues to inspire, reminding us that even in times of crisis, it is virtue and determination that truly define a leader. We have reached the end of our journey through the fascinating history of the 5 good emperors of Rome. These incredible leaders, such as Nerva, Trajan, Hadrian, Antoninus Pius, and Marcus Aurelius, demonstrated that true greatness does not come solely from power, but from the ability to govern with justice, wisdom, and compassion. They faced immense challenges, but always sought the well-being of the people and the prosperity of the empire. Whenever you want to access the entire history of Rome and how this grand empire was formed, just remember to get your digital book, The 10 Battles That Shaped the Roman Empire. Go to the pinned comment and grab yours right now. Our units are limited, so be sure to secure yours. Rome stood out not only for its territorial conquest, but also for its advancements in architecture, philosophy, and administration. These emperors left a legacy that still inspires leaders around the world. If you enjoyed this video and want to know more about stories like this, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. Your interaction is super important for us to continue bringing amazing content. Thank you for joining us on this journey through Roman history, and see you next time.